here to talk. We're here to talk about predictions for 2023. What's going to happen. Obviously, as we can kind of appreciate, the marketplace is changing, and things. Obviously, we just got the elections past us a few days ago, so the question's been coming up a lot, like what's going to happen differently. How is 2023 going to be different than this year and even prior years? For most of the clients that we're working with, they're coming off record banner years, and they're obviously concerned about what's going to be different, if you will. So, Rob, I'm going to let you start delving into some.
So yeah, I mean, so we got a couple of questions, and I'm trying to kind of sort through the ones that are really similar, but basically we got people kind of basically asking. It's funny because we talked about what's working now, but so they're saying, well, what are you doing now, and what will you be doing? Is the question to adjust for whatever's happening. But before we and we should address that. But before we talk about that, somebody's asking, what is the what's happening with financing?
Yeah. As everyone knows, offering attractive, quote unquote, attractive financing programs is something that's been something that most contractors have used for the last number of years, whether it be 0% interest for the first year, or whether it be a lower interest rate for multiple years, or even the life of the loan. It's been something that's been a crutch, if you will, that contractors have been using. And the reason why is it works, right? So to offer somebody, hey, we can put this in and it's X amount of dollars, but we've got 0% financing or some ridiculously low interest rate for how many years. It's easy for the comfort advisor, for the selling technician to use, and it's really propelled business for a lot of contractors. That being said, what's going to happen next? So the way, and again, based upon my conversations, I see one of two things happening. Either A, these programs, especially the 0%, go away completely, right? And they're replaced by something else, or they're going to start charging even more. And we know that, it's obviously expensive to use these programs as it is. Some of them, they're charging you a dealer rate of like 10% right off the top that goes out the window. So that's kind of disheartening, the fact that it could go up even more to keep these programs. So what do you do? Well, it's either A, you either pivot and say, hey, we've got to offer a different financing program, one that will allow us to achieve the margins that we want, or B, we've got to suck it up. And if we want to continue using those, and maybe that means either A, where we raise our prices, or B, we've got to get better at the process. Maybe we need to increase our closing rates, increase our average sales, so that we can keep using those financing programs without having to, quote unquote, pass that cost on to the consumer, because those programs are either going to go away or they're going to cost more. That's not changing.
Right. It's funny because there's going to be a theme here, and it's going to sound self-serving, which is that in order to to accommodate whatever is happening, right? Because we talked about this last time. Even if there is no recession, people will be acting as if there is one, and the impact is exactly the same. And so your only answer is to up your game.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's not going to get easier. And that's what we keep, the conversation keeps coming up with contractors. It's not going to get easier. 2023 can be a great year for you, but it's not going to be easier. The marketplace is not going to be more forgiving. I've used that. I've been using that phrase when speaking with them. It's not going to be more forgiving. It's going to be actually more difficult. So either A, you level up your own skills as a leader of the company, and you scale up your, and develop the people that work for you, specifically your comfort advisors and your selling technicians, or it's going to hurt you.
Right. So we got another question about the big consolidators and private equity companies.
Yes. For those of you that know, they're out there, they're paying big bucks for companies. And guess what? They want to get a return on investment. I had a conversation last week. One of the consolidators purchased a client of ours, and the management staff there is expected to grow at a 30%. It was right about 30%, it might have been 32%, 32% over last year. Now
Wow.
that's tough when you're a small company, but once you get to any type of size, i.e. you're doing 8 figures in sales, not 7, 30% is a huge number, or 32% is a huge number. So think about that. You're doing $10 million, you got to grow 30%. That's $3 million more that you've got to, that you've got to add on to top line sales. That's difficult to do, but they're intent on doing that because they're paying such insane multiples of earnings for these businesses. They're committed to the process. So these guys, they've spent a ton of money on buying these companies at insane multiples. And guess what? They want to get their returns. So they're going to do whatever they have to. And they are making plans to get aggressive in the marketplace. They are not taking their foot off the gas. They're throwing their foot all the way down, pedal to the metal.
So what are the implications for a smaller to medium sized player if one of these guys is coming into your marketplace?
You got to scale up. I mean, excuse me, you have to level up your skills. You can't, they're not going to play quote unquote fair. They're not going to play easy, if you will.
Right.
This is, I love my football analogies, and as a long suffering fan of the Buffalo Bills for so many years, we weren't a very good team for so long, and the Patriots were a phenomenal team. When the Patriots played the Bills, they did not let up on us. They did not say, "Hey, the Bills aren't that good. We're not gonna throw everything at them." That's the same thing for business. So if you are, I don't care whether you are a mid-tier player or a lower tier player or a high tier player, this is going to get more difficult. This is going to be more difficult. Now is the time to not just sit around and just pray that things get better. This is the time for you to level up your skills for everybody, including even just the CSRs. I don't hear anybody talking about this, about getting their CSRs better, to inspect what they expect, to listen to those calls that are coming in. Hey, are we doing a good job of even booking the appointments? Right? Because if not, everything else is, you're spending money to make the phone ring, but if you can't even answer the phone properly, what difference does it make how good the comfort advisor or the technician is out in the field if we can't even answer the phone properly?
Right, right. It's funny, and no one thinks about those things when getting the business is easy, but when things get tough, you got to. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. It's funny, when I see these questions about advertising costs going up, and you and I know just from online stuff, advertising costs have been going up constantly. I mean, I don't know anywhere where they've gone down. Do you? Just out of curiosity.
No, everything goes up. I mean,
Right,
it doesn't make a difference whether you're spending money online, offline, what your media mix looks like. Media is in itself is not getting cheaper. So I deal with a lot of clients who still do direct mail. Well, direct mail is getting more expensive. It's not only the cost of the postage that's gone up, it's the actual cost of the mailing. I mean, a ream of paper now costs 2 to 3 times what it used to. So envelopes cost more, the inside, or if you're doing postcards, the cardstock's costing more, the ink is costing more. So overall, again, regardless of the marketing mix that you have, media goes up over time. But there's also, in terms of online, especially with PPC, the cost per click goes up. Why? We've got competitors who are out there who are, getting more and more aggressive. They're willing to spend money to go negative to gain a customer, right?
right, right. So what is a contractor to do given what's going on? How do they gain an advantage?
My marketing mentor told me that your biggest marketing advantage is your ability to outspend your competitors to gain a new customer. Now, unless you understood what he meant, you'd kind of be like, wait a minute, how can I outspend a competitor? The key is to figure out how to maximize the lifetime value of the customer, right? So that you can, a lot of contractors, they use tune-ups as a way to get, clients in through the front door, which is great. I recommend it, right? It's a great way to build a business. One of my clients has got 6,000 maintenance agreement customers, right? 6,000, that's huge.
Right.
Well, he was able to do that because he was willing to spend the money because they knew what to do when they went to that customer's house for the first time. They had a process, right, designed to get the customer to like and to trust the technician and to do what's best in the best interest of the customer. And sometimes maybe it is replacing a new system initially, or maybe it just is to get them on a maintenance agreement, right? Or
Right.
maybe it is to offer indoor air quality solutions, whatever the case may be. But if you can figure out a process to, to maximize that lifetime value of the customer, and again, I stress lifetime value, not, hey, what can we make on the first visit when we're there? No, that's not what this is about. And it's definitely not about just selling something to somebody because you can. As we both
Right.
know, that's not a good way to
Right.
approach this. So you've got to figure out how to maximize that lifetime value of the customer so you can spend more than anybody else, right? So we talk about going negative. So a lot of contractors, they'll price a tune-up. I mean, I've seen as little as $29.95 in today's economy, right?
Right.
Some are pricing it at 69, some 99, and then you've got some that are pricing it at like 129, right? Every marketplace is different, but the reality is that whatever the number is, you're going to go negative. I mean, I don't know anybody that's able to scale up advertising campaigns where they're breaking even with that initial tune-up. I just don't know anybody that's doing. Yeah, I'm not talking about being able to generate a handful of tune-ups, at break even. I'm talking about where you're able to get a sizable number of new tune-up customers consistently. I'm talking about 50 to 100 new customers, a month. They're not
Right.
doing that at break even.
Right. Right.
They're not selling it for $69 and the marketing cost is 69. That ain't happening.
Right. Right. And just so that
Small numbers, yes, but not big numbers.
so I just want to before I ask the next question, does everybody understand what lifetime value of a customer, like what exactly that entails?
Show of hands, yes, right. So again, it's what is the customer value? How long is a customer going to be with you for? Are they going to be with you for a year? Are they going to be with you for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? How much do they spend for today? What do they spend over the course of that in, repairs, service? What do they spend in that in terms of add-ons and options? And then what is, here's the other thing comes in. What is your average replacement? At what year does that happen? Right. So I'm here obviously for right now in Buffalo before I moved down to Florida. The lifetime of a system in Buffalo is tremendously different than the lifetime of a system down in Florida, right? So, a furnace here, people expect to get 15, 20 years out of a furnace here. Down in Florida, people do not expect to get 15 to 20 years out of an air conditioner for the most part.
Right.
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 Yeah. So you have a faster replacement cycle than you do, in certain parts of the country. So again, unless you know what your lifetime customer value is, how can you even say, hey, it's worth it for me to spend $150 to get a $69
Right.
tune-up?
Right. Right. Right.
Back in
So
back in the 90s, this, we've had this conversation. In Buffalo, when we started telemarketing, I was able to get a new tune-up customer back in the 90s for $20 to $25. I was actually able to get new customers, not only at break even, I was actually able to make money on a new tune-up customer.
Right. Yeah. That's crazy, isn't
Which
it?
is unheard of today,
Right.
at least in any type of quantity, if you will.
Right. Right. And then so somebody who was, I guess they were on the last call, but they were asking about how to deal with the customer mindset if they're going down the path of a recession or being pessimistic about the economy.
Yeah, a great question, because whether or not we want to say, well, are we in a recession or not, the perception is with the average consumer is we're already in a recession. That's what they're already thinking, right? So their mindset is not going to be as rosy, not as optimistic as it has been, especially over the last couple of years. And this is not a political conversation, but we've been in a relatively good economic cycle for a number of years. And this past year with inflation, right, with cost of goods going up, with it getting tough to find employees more so than ever, we've got to make believe that it's not going to be as easy for the customer to say yes to spending money as they have in the last however many years you want to say, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, you pick it, if you will. So,
Right.
you really kind of got to think about that customer mindset and think about what you're really selling them, but more importantly, how you're selling them, right? Because people still buy for the same reasons as they did years ago, but the mindset has definitely changed. They're still
Right.
buying comfort saving, they're still buying, a utility savings, they're still buying comfort, they're still buying peace of mind, they're still buying safety, right? They're still buying these things, but how they're buying is different.
Yeah. By the way, just as a funny thing, we always talk about this because the perception is, oh, it's a recession, and therefore, anything that's considered extravagant or whatever stops.
Right.
And the reality is, Lexus does not close their doors because it's a recession. They're still selling them. By the way, and somebody should Google this, but I heard somewhere that a lot of real luxury stuff like yachts do better in recessions.
Yeah.
So, do with that information what you will. So the other one, there's always somebody asking about what do you think is going to happen with equipment pricing?
Oh, it's going to go down huge. It's going to go down 50%. Alan's like, Chris, shut up. I'll kill you.
Right.
The reality is that's
Sorry, I had you on mute. I laughed out
that's
loud.
okay. That's
Sorry.
okay. I saw you.
Sorry.
I know I'm funny. Kevin knows I'm funny too. I can see he's laughing too. I mean, the reality is that it's all good. It's going to continue to go up, right? So, I mean, obviously, we could talk about what are the causes for this. Well, there's the COVID disruption, supply chain problems. There's inflation. There's this. It really doesn't make a difference what the reason why it's more money. We're in the same predicament. Equipment pricing is going to go up, right? And so we've got to say, but here's the other thing. What happens January 1st, guys? What's changing with our equipment? The SEER rating, right? SEER 2, this, that, you name it, whatever zone you're in the country, your efficiency ratings change, right? This equipment's going to cost more money, right? So we're dealing with a double whammy. People aren't like understanding this. And I'm out there shouting like, hey guys, if we don't get our comfort advisors better, we don't get our selling technicians better, we're going to be in trouble because this equipment's going to cost a lot more money, right? And if we're not prepared for that, we're in trouble. If we're not making the most of our opportunities when we're in a customer's house, we are in trouble, massive trouble. So the equipment pricing is going to go up for reasons like, again, COVID supply chain disruptions, inflation. But then the other thing, the other flip side of the double whammy is all the higher efficiency ratings on this new equipment, right? So it's got.
So can I interrupt?
Yeah, by all means, brother.
So with what you said previously about the consolidators and about the venture capital coming in, those are smart guys. They want high margins.
Huge.
And we're in the business. We all know this is a cash cow if done right.
Yes.
I mean, we know that this business generates tons of cash. So if they're willing to come in and buy these companies at ridiculous multiples, I mean, we're getting 18s and 20s here in the Triangle area, which is just ridiculous when we could buy companies at 4.5 a few years ago.
Mhm.
So they're going to want to start getting that money back. I mean, they're paying stupid margins. So they're going to want to get that money back. So if they're going in and they're cutting everybody's throat to get more of that market share, and the equipment's going up and our advertising costs are going up, at what point do they go, hey guys, it was bad to get into the service business. How do we get out? So to me, does that take a year, 2 years, 10 years? How long did it take in the last cycle before they started going, all right, we're out, uncle, we're out?
Well, in the 90s, when I sold to Service Experts, it happened relatively quick. I mean, the consolidators, it didn't work out. I don't care whether it was Service Experts, ARS, Comfort Systems, Blue Dot, this, that, the other thing. It went fast. So is it going to go as fast now? I don't know. They want to return. There is pressure already happening now with these private equity companies. My guess is that you're going to see those multiples come down of what they're paying, because at some point they're going to say, we can't keep up with this pace. We can't afford to pay 16 times earnings for a company because we can't grow it fast enough to justify it. I believe it starts there. So if someone does want to sell, now is probably the time to sell, because you're going to be able to get the maximum dollar for it now. In 12 or 24 months, is that window still here? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be, I think they're still going to be out there, but I don't think at this rate, because this is, I think it's unsustainable personally.
Yeah. And realistically, let's be honest. I mean, I go in and I look at buying companies as well. And honestly, the majority of these companies, if you pull the owner out, or you pull the owner and the owner's wife, who is usually the office manager, if you pull them out of the business, these businesses fall apart. There are very few of them out there that are out selling and looking for new buyers that truly can stand alone. I mean, you pull them out. I mean, you lose the glue that holds it together. Yes, every one of these organizations has a service manager, sales manager, admin, install man. They all have them. But they're not driving the business the way that owner does, because that owner pushes those guys to drive that business. So at what point do they go, holy smokes, yes, there's cash in this business, but man, does it take a lot of hand holding. We want out. I mean, there's a whole lot going on there. And especially with those high margins, they got to start making money fast.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that happened with us when we sold our business to Service Experts. They come in, they think they know better than you.
Yeah.
And I saw the handwriting on the wall, and I left before my 3-year agreement was even up. So I saw the handwriting on the wall. They took with our business. I can tell you about this now. I mean, looking at it now, when we sold the business December 1996, we were doing $4 million a year in business. December 1996. So perspective wise, it would probably be doing about $12 million a year in today's dollars, right? Today in this marketplace, they're not even a factor anymore. They're down to they went through the customer list. I mean, if they're doing $1 million a year in today's dollars, I would be surprised in today's dollars. So the reality is, you're right. The consolidators, I don't see that they can keep up this pace of paying that multiple. At some point, you got to pay the piper. Right.
Well, but Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost a benefit because they're actually upping the market price, for Alan and myself, and they're kind of, bringing up the cost of goods for us. So it gives us an opportunity to raise our prices too, without competing against the one-man bands.
Yeah, they're better to compete against them because their prices are here instead of the mom and pop shop down here. So yes,
right. I mean, I'd rather get a 55% margin on my jobs than a 35% competing against a mom and pop shop all day long and turn down a couple of jobs. Again, like Alan said, there is opportunity for a cash cow here.
Yeah,
and so
But the
And we-
reality is the reality is this is that they are leveling up their staff. I work with one of these companies, so I can say they're spending money to get them better. If you as the business owner are not getting yourself better, your staff better, it's done. It's done. You're going to see your market share go down. They're not going to resist spending the money to invest in their people to get them better. And that's one of the things that I've noticed. They're perfectly willing to invest to get their people better. Right.
Yeah, and historically, let's call it what it is. Historically, us HVAC guys have not done that.
No,
We have not invested in our people across the board because we're all scared we invest in them, they leave.
Yeah.
So, to steal a line from Barry Burnett, he used to say, all right, so you don't train them and you keep all the dummies.
right. Well,
So-
my partner Rick used to say, he says, what's worse, not training them and they stay, or train them and then they leave.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
was saying that back in the 90s.
We kind of changed our philosophy here about 5 years ago, and we started training them to leave. And we've been fortunate. The majority of them have stayed, some have left, but we train them to leave because every day I'm looking for an exit strategy. So I'm training them so I can exit more and more. And so, we haven't done a good job of it. So you're right. I think that's what they're doing is they're bringing in people who truly understand business. And they're studying the HVAC and the home services business, and they may very well beat us at our own game.
Yeah, without a doubt, they do realize the ROI of investing in their people.
Yeah.
Like they get it. You don't have to convince them of investing in their people. They know it proves. But they have to, if they're paying that type of multiple, they've got to say, well, okay, how are we going to grow 30%? That is huge. I don't care what size business that you've got. 30% is 30%. That is no joke. Especially for some companies that they've acquired that already have been on a massive growth trajectory.
Yeah, and I mean they're doing the same thing that we try to do too, is that they're getting that 30% with the same overhead and the same fixed cost. So all that gross margin dropping to the bottom line. So truly at the end of the day, they are probably making big money.
Yeah.
I mean, they're keeping that same, fixed cost. Yeah, they're adding a few people here and there, but they're not adding expenses at 30%. At the same point, they're adding revenue at 30%. So all that gross margin is dropping to the bottom line. It's smart. It's smart. If you got the capital to push that hard, yeah. So, we just have to be smart enough to beat them at it.
Yep.
But let me just throw a warning there, because you can't underestimate the stupidity of really big, smart companies that have lots of money.
Yeah.
Right? They do that all the time. We've seen it happen. Wall Street is full of companies that are selling for 200 times next year's earnings. It happens all the time, and people are willing to do it because they think, hey, by the time everything's said and done, I'll be the only one left standing.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I actually told the guys the other day if I won the Powerball, I was going to buy every HVAC company in North and South Carolina.
right.
Name my price. I was going to buy them all. Just go through, and they go, "Why would you do that?" I go, "It's because when you have billions of dollars, you can."
Right. Right.
Yeah, but that was before taxes. So you get
Yeah.
it was $2 billion, but then you get the one-time payout and then you get cashes. So then you're only left with $400 million.
Yeah.
And what are you gonna do with
Right.
$400 million? I mean, it really. Rob, what other questions did we have?
All right, so now I'm going to go back to that original question, which is, and it's funny that we always get this one.
What?
And it shows up 10 different ways, right?
Give it to me.
What are you doing? What are you doing now? How are you preparing? And what will you do differently in 2023?
What are we doing now? I mean, the most successful companies that we're working with, more inspecting what we expect. So we're training them, but we're inspecting what we expect. So we're not just saying, hey guys, we want you to follow this process, go do it. We're actually we're having someone go out there to inspect, are they actually doing it? Right. So that's a big one, is not only train them, but inspecting what we do. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
So what are you doing now?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to prepare? And what will you do differently in 2023?
again, what are we doing? What are we doing now? We're doing more of what we were doing. So more training and more inspecting, right? More working on the employee mindset. Because if you don't get this straight in their head, you're going to have troubles, right? You've got to combat all the shit, excuse my language, that they're seeing and hearing on the news, how bad things are and whatnot. If you're not combating that, that's going to get through to their head. They're going to start to believe that. They're going to start to believe that customers aren't buying. They're not buying. Really? You want to bet? They are, right? So spending more time working on the employee mindset is huge. And we're preparing for things to get tightened up. Consumer finance, we're trying to break the cycle of using these 0% interest programs, because I'm not sure whether they're going to stay or not. And if they do stay, I'm not sure whether most of these clients are going to be able to afford it.
Right.
You know, they're expensive. They're expensive, right? So, you know, do you want to be able to keep raising prices to accommodate these programs? Because if they stay, they're going to get more expensive. I mean, look what's happened now in real estate. The housing market has cooled off. Why? Because interest rates have gone up so much that people can't afford near as big of a house. Doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that, hey, you better either figure out how to play the game, or you better have the fundamentals mastered. You got to be so good at the process, because everyone's going out there saying the same shit to a customer. We do the best work. This, that, the other. They're all saying the same stuff. And the consumer's going, okay, right? So unless you're differentiating yourself and really going through those steps, you're going to sound like everybody else. And if it acts like a duck and quacks like a duck, what must it be, Rob?
It's got to be a duck.
Got to be a duck.
Right. It's funny. One of the things I've been saying lately is you can't aspire to have to be me too.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going anywhere. So it looks like a lot of these questions are kind of repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the specific ones I really believe are stuff that I think people, when they're asking a specific question, they feel like, you know, or they think that this is going to be like a consulting session, and it's not. And I think for those people, you should let them know, like, if somebody really needs some sort of specific information.
Yeah, here, let me do this. I'm going to pull this up, and I want to give, if you guys are here on the thing, I want to send you a copy of the book that just came out, that me and my
Chris, I got a question for you.
Sure.
What's your opinion about repair versus replacement with this new 2023?
You mean, how does it change?
No, I've heard from a couple of vendors, suppliers, economists, that they're saying that there's going to be more repairs than replacements this year due to the cost change.
I think that there's truth to that if you're not following a system. I think that when you show most people repair versus replace, even with the system being, you know, going up in price, you're still showing over the next 2-3 years that it's going to cost you 2 or 3 times as much to repair the system and replace it in 3 years as it is just to replace them today. So yeah, the number to replace today may go up, but if you look at, if you're doing a repair versus replace properly, you're still showing people the fact that it's going to cost 2 to 3 times as much to repair the system today as it will to, you know, replace it today. So valid point, but if you're doing it properly, it's not going to make that difference. You know, if you're talking about, you know, and I'm just going to throw hypothetical numbers out here, replacing the system today is $12,000, right? But you're showing them, hey, it's going to cost you $28,000 to repair it today and keep it for the next 3 years. What happens if that changes then from 12,000 to 14,000? You're still at a 2 times multiple, right? It's still going to cost you more. So Bob, Mary, you know, which makes more financial sense to you? and let them tell you. You know, it's not about cramming something down someone's throat. It's just
No.
you really doing a good job of explaining it to them. And the people, if you do it properly, they'll sell themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. All right. So I promised you guys, hold on here. I promised you guys a copy of the book. If you would shoot April an email, it's April at the hvcsalescoach.com. Just let her know that you were on today's webinar. She'll just send her over your mailing address, because this is an actual physical book. It's not an ebook. So you know as well as I do, if you guys get an ebook, how many ebooks are on your computer that you never read, right? I'm guilty of it. I admit it. So send you a hard copy of the book. And if you guys want to schedule a time to speak with me specifically about what we can do to help you guys out, you can just go to the hvcsalescoach.com/booking. Or you could ask April about that too. She could set you up with a time to talk to me, either way, but make sure that you send her your address rather, so that we can get you a copy of the book out. And also too, as an unadvertised bonus, you guys get the coolest mouse pad ever, right? This is the coolest mouse pad ever. I'm going to send this to you with the book. I think they're pretty damn cool. Rob, what do you think?
Okay, bring it closer, because yeah.
Okay.
There you go. There we go.
Can you read that? All the excuses that you hear from your comfort advisor. So cool. Thanks guys for joining me. So you guys have any questions before we wrap up? So I hope this was beneficial for you. I hope you got something out of it. I hope that you guys enjoy the book when you get it. And I look forward to helping you guys out if you need some assistance. Rob, anything else?
That's it. That's it.
All right. Guys, have a great day.
Thank you.